Alright guys, today let's talk about flat pedals. For some pedals, flat is a misnomer, and we'll actually get into that. First, we're going to talk about the shape. As I was comparing these budget alloy pedals, one of the things I was looking at was the concavity, but before you actually decide you're looking for a concave pedal, we should actually talk about the different shapes of pedals that are available. So if you're looking at flat pedals, there actually be varying degrees of flat and actually pedals that aren't flat. So first, what we'll look at is concave pedals. And what I mean by concave is actually that the sides of the pedal here are higher than the center. So it's actually dipped like a skateboard. There's concavity in a skateboard, often to keep you gripped onto the surface of the board. So there's concavity, there's flat, and then there will be convex, which obviously not quite like that. But what I was measuring for in this particular comparison was looking for more concavity, and that's because that's what I prefer. But first, how are you going to decide what you should prefer? So we have concave, flat, and convex, and why might you prefer each one of those? So concave, and the reason I was looking at concave pedals is because these are going to be for enduro riding, gnarly, chunky descents, and you really value grip over anything else. Once you put your foot on the pedal in a concave pedal, it's locked in. Obviously, that might sound like it is entirely a positive, which it is. It's what I'm looking for. The drawbacks to a concave pedal will be foot fatigue. You'll feel the front and back ridges more than you would on a convex or a flat pedal. Now, moving on to flat pedals, you'll have obviously a flat line all the way across the pedal. So if you measure here, here, or here, it's the same. With that, you'll have basically a not as locked in of a pedal, but a more evenly spread distribution across the platform of the pedal, so you'll have less foot fatigue. At that point, right, you still have, you're kind of in the middle of convex and concave, obviously. You have a more comfortable riding style. You have an ability to kind of adjust your foot on the pedal a little bit more, but you're not as locked in as you would be with a concave pedal. Now, you might see the trend here, moving to convex. It will actually be thicker in the center and narrower on the edges. At that point, usually the spindle is actually what's elevating it. So you can have a lighter pedal with that, because the material on the outside is actually smaller, and what's taking up the spindle is already taken up on a concave pedal, so they have to make them thicker on the edges. So concave might be a little lighter. The other benefit to concave is if you're taking your feet on and off the pedals frequently, then you're able to do that and adjust your feet a little bit easier than you are on a concave where your feet are really locked in. So thinking about it, mountain biking, there are some scenarios where maybe you don't want your feet as locked in. Street riding, we'll say like dirt jumpers or anything where you're trying to take your feet off. Or if you're relatively new to mountain biking and you are taking your foot off and dabbing and stopping and starting more often than an enduro rider who's more experienced and keeping their feet on all the time for a long extended downhill. You will have, I would say, more evenly distributed weight and less foot fatigue than a concave pedal. Drawback is less grip, less locked in foot feel. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of the different shapes. As we keep going, I'm going to go through the measurements I took and the criteria for my flat pedal comparison. Okay, so before we get into actually comparing the pedals themselves, I'm going to show you or talk through the measurements that I looked at and what I was kind of valuing in my search for the best budget alloy pedal. So the first thing I was measuring, as we talked about, was the concavity. I was looking for a concave pedal, so I want the sides to be higher than the center so that your feet are really locked in and don't move at all, no matter how chunky or bumpy or gnarly the terrain is. The second thing that is also contributing to locking your feet in is the pins. So there are two measurements I'm looking for on the pins, which would be the height. So I measured with a caliper the actual height above the pedal of the pins, and then the width of the pins. So the thicker a pin is and shorter a pin is, the less traction. The thinner and taller, the more traction it's going to have. Obviously you don't want them to be excessively tall, but you also you want it to be thin enough and tall enough to really grip well. And then I actually did ride on each of these pedals to get a feel for all of the grip personally, from feel, not from measurement. And then I did take the weight of each pedal in the comparison here as well to compare that. And I always just spin them to see how freely the pedal spins, which is kind of just for fun. I'm going to go through each of these pedals and the weight, concavity, pin length, pin width, and then the number of pins, and then lastly my notes. So we'll start off with a PDX G11 pedal. Weighed 7.3 ounces. Yeah, 7.3 ounces. Has 2.6 millimeters of concavity, meaning it's 2.6 millimeters thinner in the middle than the sides. 7.2 millimeter pin length, 2.8 millimeter pin width, which was pretty standard, around 2.8, and then 10 pins per side. Overall, great first impression. This pedals feel very solid, come with decent contents and extra components and packaging. Beautiful pedals, great looking pedals, very grippy, nice big platform. It's easy to get your foot on the right spot because of that size. Pedal is concaved, pins are thin and long, perfect for locked in grip. Definite seal of approval. These are like a 9 out of 10 for me. They're very, very impressive pedals for the price. You can get them as low as $79. I've seen them as high as $99. Price kind of fluctuates. Next is the 50/50 pedals. 7.4 ounce, zero concavity, so good flat pedal option for those of you looking for that. 6.7 millimeter pin length, 2.8 millimeter pin width, and then 10 pins per side. We've got a decent first impression here, solid feel and construction, good components, good packaging, no pins in the inner portion of the pedal, very tight spindle and doesn't spin super freely. Feeling is pretty grippy, platform is a good size, well constructed, pedals are not concave, which could lead to less grip overall, which you might notice over time, but also will lead to less foot fatigue, so possibly better for cross-country riding, someone who's just starting, someone who doesn't want foot fatigue. I would say definitely a seal of approval, but probably like a 7.5 out of 10. I don't like the tight feeling of that spindle and the fact that it doesn't spin super freely, and I'm looking for a concave pedal. Corky Cycles Topo is the next. 3.8 ounces, 3.4 millimeters of concavity, so very concaved. 5 millimeter pin length, which is shorter. 3.3 millimeter pin width, which is wider, and then 8 pins per side. This pedal, bad first impression from me for real mountain bike riding. They feel way too light, and I question the overall strength of the pedal. Pins are very wide and also quite short. Poor grip, small pedal platform size, no seal of approval for me. I'm sorry, Corky, with this one. All right, next is the BW USA Burr pedal. Overall, 7.4 ounces, 3 millimeters of concavity, so more concave than the PDX pedal and less than the Corky. 6.8 millimeter pin length and a 2.7 millimeter pin width. So those measurements are pretty good. 10 pins per side. I had a bad impression out of the box here. From the pictures and the pedal construction, it actually looks pretty solid online, but it ends at the potential there. The pins were screwed in backwards, so you were looking at the actual like hex wrench side of the pedal sticking out. There were no backup pins, no tools included in the packaging. Good sized platform, overall strength and feel is pretty good. But again, the pins were installed backwards, tight spindle. I didn't trust it with the pins being installed backwards, and I was worried about the quality control here. So no seal of approval. I did not test these. I wouldn't want to, you know, flip around every single pin. So that was kind of a bummer. The comparison pedal for me is non-alloy, but what I've been riding for a year or so is a P&W Components loam pedal. And this, I didn't weigh them, but they have a negative 3.7 concavity, so it's a convex pedal to the degree of 3.7 millimeters, 6.6 millimeter pin length, and a 2.8 millimeter pin width, and then 11 pins on each side. So the nice thing about this pedal is that it's cheap. So a concave pedal, I think it's around $40 to $50, but it is composite, so it's not alloy, and it won't hold up as well. The spindle's loose and it spins well, but sometimes the spindle actually comes loose and there's some vibration to the pedal, which I didn't love. One thing to note though with that is P&W Components is amazing with the customer service. They will help you out and they'll fix everything for you if you do have issues. All right, honorable mentions to check out. I couldn't include every pedal here. I want to show a variety of price points, but there are a few more within the $100 budget. That being said, I would recommend checking out these pedals. So the Origin 8 Rascal pedals, $99 right now. I didn't test these. The pins don't look the best. They look a little too fat and short in my opinion. Next would be the Spoon 90 pedals at $89, which also have pins that look shorter and wider than optimal, but you could replace those. Last pedal on honorable mentions under $100 is the Fundamental pedals. They look like a really good option from what I can tell. They are alloy pedals with a flat design, so no concave, no convex, 12 pins per side. I haven't measured the pins, but they look like they would be around the 7.2 length and 2.8 width. Worth a try for sure for $94. And then the next one up didn't come under 100, but 115 for the TENET Occult V2 pedal. The awesome thing about this is they have a pedal refresh program, so that might actually make the value be under 100 for you, because if anything starts to wear out, you bring them in, they're going to actually like replace spindles, etc., fully clean things up, replace pins. So your pedal is going to last you, we'll say, double, because they're going to refresh everything for you for free. So really cool thing worth checking out. They're a local company in Bellingham, and I would say definitely check them out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if I missed anything. Let me know any tips, and comment down below which pedals you're riding, or what are your favorites, or what you're looking at for your next pedals to buy. Cheers, guys. Again, thank you so much. If you enjoyed this, like and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one, and I will catch you on the trails.